7.5 Apply properties of logarithms. We've got three formulas that we kind of have to memorize in order to be successful in today's lesson. They're called the product property, the quotient property, and the power property. And what they basically tell us is how to expand or condense logarithms. For example, I want you to put this in your notes. As your first example using the product property, maybe we have something like log base b of 3x. B could be any number. Let's actually have b be a number. Log base 7 of 3x. The product property tells us that we can split that up into log base 7 of 3 plus log base 7 of x. And it works the other way too. If we've got log base 7 of 3 plus log base 7 of x, we can put them together to get log base 7 of 3x. That's the quotient property, or the product property. The quotient property works similarly. We might have log base 7 of 3 over x. We can split that up into log base 7 of 3 minus log base 7 of x. The reason we like to do this is because it helps us have simpler pieces of a problem compared to the original problem. Lastly, the power property tells us if we have log base b of anything to an exponent, we can drop that exponent. So for instance, if we have log base 3 of x to the fifth, the quotient property tells us we can just drop that exponent down. This is all part of helping us to expand logarithms, but if we use them So our first example tells us to evaluate log base 4 of 3 over 7, but we don't know what log base 4 of 3 over 7 is, and I could ask you to do this without a calculator, given the information right here. I know log base 4 of 3, I know log base 4 of 7, so I'm going to use my quotient property to expand this. Log base 4 of 3 minus log base 4 of 7. I know to use minus because the quotient property, when we have division inside a log, says split it up with a minus sign. I know what log base 4 of 3 is, 0.792. I see that in the directions. Minus log base 4 of 7, 1.404. And if we subtract that, we get negative 0.612. Totally fair to expect you to do that without a calculator. Part B looks a little harder. I see a 21, but I don't have any information about a 21. I have information about log base 4 of 3 and log base 4 of 7. This is actually going to be a product property. I know that 21 is 3 times 7, and that helps me split it up. I now have a product inside my logarithm, so I can split this up with addition. Once again, I already know what log base 4 of 3 is, 0.792. I already know what log base 4 of 7 is, 1.404. If we add those up, we get 2.196. Once again, totally fair without a calculator. Part C does not look like we can get it using a 3 and a 7. However, I do know that 49 is 7 squared. This goes back to our third property, the power property. It says we can take this exponent and drop it down to log base 4 of 7. This is easier for us now because we know log base 4 of 7 is 1.404. Multiply those, we get 2.808. So we just evaluated logs using the product property, the quotient property, and the power property. Right now, go ahead and pause the video, use the information in the directions to try to rewrite 1 through 4 using 5s and 8s. Then you'll use your product property, your quotient property, and your power property to evaluate them. As you're doing this, keep in mind that you should be able to do this without a calculator. Next up, we're just going to use those same properties to split everything up. It's called expanding a logarithm. If we look at this, the one thing that affects everything on the inside is the division sign. So we're going to use the quotient property first. The quotient property says we can split up logs by taking whatever's on top minus whatever's on bottom. If we look at this, part of it seems like we can't go any further, but the other part looks like we can. Inside there, we've got 5 times x to the third. So we're going to use the product property to split up the 5 times x to the third. This becomes log base 6 of 5 plus log base 6 of x to the third, and we still have the minus log base 6 of y. At this point, 2 of the pieces look like they're not going to go any further. 5's by itself can't do much with it, y's by itself can't do much with it. But x to the third, that has an exponent. We get to use our quotient property now, our power property, to drop that down. It becomes 3 log base 6 of x. My first term does not change. My last term does not change. The reason I know I'm finished is because 5 cannot be split up any further, and there's no exponent. X cannot be split up with addition, or with multiplication or division, or exponents. Y cannot be split up with multiplication, division, or exponents. So I'm done. This is fully expanded. Where we'll be going with this soon is you'll start with something like this and have to get back up to here. And the steps are exactly the same, but backwards. And that's what we see now. It's asking us which of the following is equivalent to log 9 plus 3 log 2 minus log 3. We have to go backwards on this. I wrote that kind of wrong. That 2 should not be a base. By the way, since there is no base visually seen on this, you should be able to tell me exactly what the base is. If you're thinking 10, good job. Now, I see addition here, so my first gut instinct might be trying the product property. It's not quite right, we can't use it yet. Product property only works when you have log plus log. That 3 in the front messes us up. So first we use our power property to bring that 3 up. Log base 10 of 9 plus log base 10 of 2 to the third minus log base 3. Now we know what 2 to the third is, so we can figure that out. 2 to the third is 8. Nothing else changes in this step. So really what I did here was dealt with my power property first to bring all the exponents up. There was only one. Now I can use my product property and quotient property together, left to right. Kind of like the order of operations for logs. These two are added together, so I get to take the 9 and the 8 and multiply them. When I multiply them, I put them in the same log. Minus log base 3, or log base 10 of 3. We know 9 times 8 is 72, so our next step might look like that. 9 times 8 is 72. Our last step, because we're subtracting logs, we get to use our quotient property, which says divide the two numbers and put them inside the same log. And without a calculator, we should be able to figure out that 72 divided by 3 is 24. Doesn't look like there's a lot more I could do right there, so I go back up to my answers and hopefully find log of 24. And it's there. At this point, go ahead and simplify. Actually, on the first one, it's asking you to expand. Keep in mind that 4 only touches the x, not the 3. And number 6, it's asking you to condense. Be careful to use your exponent property first. Go ahead and pause the video and try these. Our next example tells us how to evaluate logs in our calculator when the base is not 10 or e. You'll remember from the last lesson that we could put this in the calculator. We could put this in the calculator because we have buttons on our calculators that say log and natural log, but they force us to use base 10. If we wanted to evaluate log base 7 of 23 in our calculator, we don't know how to do that yet. This formula tells us how to do it. Basically what it tells us is in the calculator, if you have whatever base you want, you can change it to any other base. The bases we like are 10 or e, because our calculator has those buttons. And the way we do that is we create a fraction. We put log base 10 of 23 on top, log base 10 of 7 on the bottom. This we can type in our calculator and get a decimal answer, which really means we now know how to evaluate this guy in our calculator. If we don't have to use the log button, we should also be able to use the natural log button. Type that in our calculator. We'll get the same answer as if we used the log button. So our next example is going to be exploring that idea. It says evaluate log base 3 of 8 using common logs and natural logs. So we have two ways we can do this. We can type in our calculator log of 8 divided by log of 3, or you can type in your calculator natural log of 8 divided by natural log of 3. I'd recommend you pause the video and try this in your calculator right now so you make sure you get the same answer as me. Either way, you should be getting 1.893. If you're not getting that, you need to figure out what's going on with your calculator. At this point, go ahead and try problems 7 through 10. They're all calculator problems. You can use the log base 10 button or the natural log button. But I'm looking for a decimal for all of these, and you should round that decimal to 3 places. Go ahead and pause the video and do that now. And that's it for this video. Have an exciting day.